Welcome to Marriage and Mental Illness. Illness. Mark and Merey here with you once again. We've been married for many years,
Long time.
25 years. We've been living with mental illness, in my case, for 15 years. So we've been through the hard yards. So what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about strategies.
This is, we're going to talk about strategies which you actually covered on Monday.
Yep.
So you can always go back and recheck Monday's podcast, and you go through all your 5 strategies that you use.
Yeah, 5 of the strategies that I use, yes.
Yes. And this is simply a conversation that we're going to have more about strategies and what we do
as it pertains to the relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So if you listen to that earlier podcast from earlier this week, it's 5 strategies for living with mental illness. They're in no particular order. We'll talk about them today if we feel we need to, but
Sure.
we're going to just dive in. So first off, I really am I'm really at a bit of a loss as to where to start today because there's so much to talk about. So let's talk about the importance of strategies in a relationship.
Okay, we can do that. Knowing that with people with mental illness, they have to put in a lot of different strategies in order to help maintain and help to keep themselves healthy each day as well. But there's also strategies for carers in both ways.
Okie doke. So, all right, well, I'll ask you for an example. What's an example of a strategy that you have to have when you're thinking about dealing with me on a daily basis or our kids?
That's not just one strategy though.
No,
being strategic.
I'm just asking for a random. Well, let's talk about one. Every day in the morning, I have to call you.
Yes.
If you're not at home, you are not at rest until you hear from me.
Yeah, that's because I need to know where you're at for the day. I need to know how you're feeling. Probably that was more important when you were struggling more.
Yep.
Not so much as important now, but now it's just a habit and I have to hear from you. So you have to call me.
Okay. So why should somebody who's hearing this not think of that as being some sort of weird domestic violence thing that I have to call you every morning? What's the rationale behind it as a carer?
Because then I can hear your voice, I can see where you're at for the day and assess what you might need. So then as a carer, I can anticipate your needs and potentially be there if you need me. Let's just say you need me to come home, because that's been a thing. You've needed me to come home for you because you haven't been in a good headspace in the past. Not now, not so much now. It's not really a thing that you do. And that check-in is just a really great way for me to know where you're at and make those decisions as to what's the best thing that I can do to support you.
Okay. Now, our 2 oldest daughters have significant mental health issues. Is the rule the same for them? Do you need to speak to them in the morning?
I like to speak to them. I do.
Yep.
I like to have some sort of contact equally with you as I do with our girls, just to make sure that they're doing okay. Do they need something? Because otherwise they might not ask. They might not ask me.
Yeah. And how does that help you? Why is this such an important strategy for you particularly?
Well, otherwise I'll worry. I'll worry that they're okay. Do they need me to answer questions to make things less anxious, less stressful, easier? Because I can do that. I can make things just make the morning go easier if I'm involved in it.
Yeah. So for you, it provides security I guess.
Reassurance.
Reassurance.
Mm.
You know that everybody's fine. You know where everybody's landing as far as their mental health goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Can you think of a strategy? What's one that I have to use?
Patience.
Well, we've talked about that a lot recently, and that is a very new one. In that, whenever I was having an episode or difficulty with mental health, I would be frustrated and angry at the fact that I was struggling again. So it was a friend of mine that said in one of her talks to the schools that we go and speak to that learning to understand that those mental health crises will pass
Mm.
was a big part of giving her peace. And it was wonderful because once she verbalized it, I knew that I was already doing it.
Yeah. And I think it just depends on the person who's suffering, exactly at what stage are they at. Have they let it go too long and they're too upset, where you'd need to put in, as a carer particularly, more strategy around how you work with them, talk to them,
Mm.
handle the situation?
Yep.
Or are they just having a day when perhaps they feel a bit sad?
Mm.
And there's not as much as that you can do. Otherwise, just letting them know that you support them, love them, there for them,
Yeah.
should they need you.
Okay. So, as a carer, as my wife, what's something that you try and do every day that gives you peace, gives you an opportunity to tune out of my issues and just focus on yourself?
Honestly, it's mindfulness,
Yep.
being in the moment. I talk a lot about this. Um, I think it's important. You have to be able to have those moments where you can look at something and then just enjoy whatever you're looking at for that moment.
Okay. So, what does mindfulness work for you? How does it go into action?
So for me, when you were suffering at
Yeah.
your worst, I was still working full time,
Yep.
and we still had our 3 kids who are a lot younger,
Yep.
and all of the pressures that come with that, because it's hard, it's difficult to do. And then trying to be in the right headspace to make sure that I was looking after you, being watching out for whatever it might be that you needed. I needed to find what I call little moments in time where I could just be in that moment, enjoy it for what it was. Otherwise, you can actually get so caught up in your world, your work life, your kids, the stresses of dealing with someone with mental illness, that you just forget to look around you and know that things, you can enjoy those moments.
So, where do those moments come from? Do you go for walks? Yeah.
I'd go for walks. Sometimes I would actually just be waiting for the bus. One time, I was waiting for the bus and a guy just rode past on his bike, but there was something on his bike that jingled and it sounded like jingle bells, and it made me think of Christmas, and it was nowhere near Christmas, but that wasn't the point. And just the sound of it made me smile, and I loved it so much, and I just enjoyed that moment.
Yeah.
And it was only less than 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Less than 30 seconds that would have been. But I still enjoyed it after he left, and that's what's important. That's how you grab that moment and just enjoy it, remember it, and it can give you a smile. It might not last, a smile might not last, but you had it.
Because you are jumping on a bus with a bunch of people, so.
Yeah, it might have been summertime, it might have been smelly, I don't know.
So, let's talk about strategies when it comes to me, because the hardest thing for me, I think, in the beginning, besides being able to verbalize what was actually wrong in any moment, was putting in place the strategies that I needed to put in place. Is that a fair comment? At the
Yeah,
beginning.
that is a fair comment, but you might have been putting in strategies, you might have had those strategies in place, but they're often very silent, so I wouldn't know what
Yeah.
you were doing or how hard you were working. And most of the time, people around you won't know how hard you're actively working to put your strategies in, being mindful, being careful. Must be exhausting.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It is. It's when I was doing the breakdown earlier this week, I was kind of astounded at how much I have to work regularly, because now I consider myself to be fairly healthy. I'm never going to get better. I'm never going to be back to whatever 100% is. But on my good days, I almost feel normal, almost.
Yeah.
But when I was outlining earlier in the week on the podcast, the 5 strategies, it made me think about, oh, when this happens, this happens. So before I go anywhere, I assess where I'm going to go. I think about it. Try to put myself mentally in the place that I'm going to go. Is the place safe? Am I prepared for what I need to do?
Yep.
So if it's shopping, do I have the shopping bags? If it's going to speak at a school, do I have my working with vulnerable people card? Do I have my driver's license? And then I'm thinking, okay, what's the strategy I have to put in place now before I go there? And so speaking at a school, it comes down to distraction. I need to distract myself. So once I'm prepared, I can't sit in the car practicing my talk because I get anxious. And it leads to me being quite fretful. So then when I get to the place, I've actually learnt this thing where I almost have, and this sounds weird even to me, I almost have an out of mind experience where I just go with the flow. So often it's confusing. Often there's many students. Often teachers have forgotten that we're coming to the school to speak. So it can be really chaotic just getting to the classes. And I've learned to have this out of mind experience. It's like out of body, but I'm still in my body. And I'm just kind of switched off from all the stimuli. I'm just, in my head, I'm floating in the breeze. We're going this way. Okay, cool. One of the people said to me a couple of weeks ago that they're amazed at how relaxed I am. It was a particular day where I ended up being moved 4 times in 10 minutes. And because I was in this state of just, whatever, it's not my problem, I'm safe, everything's okay, I can just go with the flow. I was able to just go with the flow. A couple of weeks later, I was at a very, very organized school where they knew exactly where we were going and when. They got us there on time. We were probably more prepared than I'd ever been for any talk ever, but I could not put my head into that whatever state. And I started to get really anxious. To the point where I had to go to my breathing strategies. I had to, you know, it must have looked weird because I kind of ducked my head down sort of behind a desk and I was just breathing and reassuring myself that I'm safe and everything's okay until I could get myself back to a point where it was, okay, now I can sit back up and re-engage. And then, of course, you've got the coming home. I will try to get out of there as fast as I can because there's often a little chit chat afterwards between all the staff, but I'm spent. So if the teachers want to talk to me or the other presenters want to talk to me about issues or even just get to know you, that's a time that I can't engage. I have to get into the car. I have to turn some music on. Generally, I have to speak to you. I just have to get out of there. It's almost like I'm hitting the ejection seat. Like I am done. And then I don't think about it. I don't think about how it went. I don't think about the reaction of the students because I can't. When I do, I get anxious. So I put my strategies in place. I do my distraction. I do my avoidance if I need to, so that when I'm back with you, I'm able to process it properly. And that's where things will often come up where I'll go, oh, somebody said this today and it was really good. It really wasn't until I was doing the strategies earlier this week on like trying to lay them out that I realized how much work goes into that.
But even from a carer's perspective, there can be quite a lot of prep work
Yeah.
at times. And great example of that is we're about to have an 18th birthday dinner for our eldest daughter.
Yeah. That can't be right.
And it's going to be an event with a lot of family. And I've been prepping you.
You have.
Yeah. I was wondering if you were aware that I was prepping you.
Not initially, but I got it fairly quickly.
Okay. Yeah.
That you were like, okay. Because there was times where I made suggestions and you were already like there.
Yeah.
You were like, oh, that's a good idea. We might do that, even though that's what you'd already decided what to do.
True. It's more so that you understand we have to have this event. So this thing has to happen where we're celebrating our daughter.
Yep.
And a whole bunch of family needs to come.
Yep.
Mixed space of family. And you need to be prepared for the fact that there's going to be a lot of people there just in general and a lot of family members. Some who you actively talk to and some who you don't.
Well, some cause me a lot of stress. So, but look, we've got a guest waiting. We've not done this before. We might welcome them. Let's see if Caden can come on the line. Guest is joining in. Okay, so first time we've done this. Caden, how's it going, mate?
You're on mute, buddy.
Have we put him on mute or has he put him on mute? Yeah, it looks like you're on mute from your end, my friend.
But that's okay. You can just interrupt us when you're off mute. I think wisdom can be a bit tricky. Oh, there we go. You're on.
Caden, g'day, mate. How's it going? Hello, Caden. Okay, so when it comes to prompting me to use my strategies, what kind of things? So, okay, we'll talk about this family event that's coming on. Talk me through your process for getting me ready for it.
Normally what happens is I already know that we're going to have an event and it's important. It's important to our daughter and I know it's important to her. And of course, she wants everybody there. It's not just a small occasion. She'll want every single person she can possibly get to be there. As a result, I know that that's going to be difficult for you. And it's going to be difficult for you to try and think of how you're going to cope with that situation. So you even need time to think about what's going to happen, what could potentially happen, and what strategies you can put into place to be able to cope with it.
Yeah.
So I will try and let you know as soon as I can that this is a thought that we have. And I'll normally start it off as, so Michaela's birthday is coming up. She wants to have dinner out. She wants to, and thinking about inviting family. What do you think about that?
Well, you started with you started even less generally than that. You started talking about having an event at your mum's house.
Yes. So it evolved over time, and that wasn't natural. That wasn't just so I could prepare you. It was actually an evolving event that we were having.
Okay.
That,
so I did have some input.
You did have some input, but I deliberately discussed things with you so that your mind was already thinking about that an event is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know quite what it is yet, but there is something that's going to happen for your daughter's 18th birthday.
Yeah.
And then that moved on to, so we're thinking of this place or this place for the event.
Yep.
And what did you think? And then it moved on to, so we're going to have a dinner and we're going to invite a bunch of family.
Right.
And it went from there to, we're now going to invite these specific people to come.
Yeah, because that's where the difficulty comes for us, because I was very hurt by a member of the family who took a joke. Admittedly, it was not a good joke, and admittedly, I compounded it by some of the comments that I made around the joke, not realizing that I had the wrong end of the stick completely. But if the family member had just contacted me and said, "What the hell is this? Why are you saying this?" we would have just gone, blah, 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 let's fix it. I am sorry, that's not what I intended.
It can be difficult with families.
It can be. And I was blackballed by part of the family. And as a parent, I can understand somebody insults your child. It's going to be very hard to move on from that.
Absolutely.
But one thing and we've discussed this before, the difference in your family and my family, your family doesn't talk about stuff. They just live with it until they can get past it, and then they'll let you know that they're past it. My family will. My uncle once shot a gun at his son. My family's a little bit more rambunctious. We're a classic Irish passionate family that drop down, drag out fights were the norm. So you have an issue with someone, you have it out with them, and it's done and dusted.
Yep.
So this idea that you can just get over something in time is something that I've struggled with. So I can see your strategy in place here, because you know that I'm really not a mean-spirited person.
No, of course not.
But I can be mean-spirited in my reactions.
You can be impulsive with your reactions.
Impulsive, and it can come across as being very mean.
Yes.
Yes.
But I think that's part of your fight or flight, in that you'll protect yourself and just say whatever comes into your mind, it'll just go bleh, and then it's out there.
Well, and
you're like pulling it back in.
Well, how many of my family fights did we then have to spend the next week apologizing for things that we said? Like you wouldn't know this, but you know, the times you'd have an argument with mum and dad, and then years later somebody would bring something up and we go, that was in an argument, that doesn't count. So, but tell me, how important were the strategies to you when I was first embarking on my mental health journey? And this is a legitimate question because I don't know. I had you in pretty much every session I had with psychs and psychologists.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you start to think that the strategies were going to be the big thing? Pretty much straight away, or was it something that we learned over time?
I think over time.
Yeah?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Honestly, at the beginning, it was pretty much just leaving you alone. That was my strategy, was leaving you alone and giving you quite a wide berth.
And some of the strategies they gave me seemed like ooga booga, you know, like, okay, we want you to start counting backwards from 10. 10, 9, 8. So this is not working. So I wouldn't, and that's a fairly broad example, but I would try putting a strategy in place. It didn't work straight away. So that was it. That strategy doesn't work. And it took us time to realize that you got to give the strategies time.
And also remembering that if one strategy doesn't work, there's like a million other strategies you can put into place, because you can have a tactile strategy where you touch something or you have something in your pocket that you can just reach in and have in your fingers. You can have a thought strategy where you have to look around and find 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, and so on.
Have I ever told you how that doesn't work for me?
No.
Yeah, no, I go worst case scenario. So what can I see? I can see the blood of my enemies.
But clearly you can't see the blood of your enemies,
But that's where it doesn't literally go the blood of my enemies, but I don't see nice and pleasant things.
But that's why that would work perhaps more, obviously not for you, but that would work for a younger person.
Yeah.
Because they can look around and it's distracting because they have to get out of their head. They have to actually think about, well, what is 5 things I can say? What can I say? And it's not like you just look around and they go, books, shelf. Kids are more like, oh, I don't know. What can I say? What can I say? Like that.
So what is it like then? They've got to go, okay, I can see that tree. That tree is green. It's beautiful. It's swaying in the breeze. It makes me feel calm.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, possibly they can do that because that's how kids get out of their head. It needs to be tactile.
Yeah. I know a woman with bipolar who shares that story, that she spent a lot of time in the Northern Territory where everything was Australian outback. So it was basically red. Everything was red. And now she's taught herself and she's gotten very good at just finding your moments. But for her, trees is one of those things. It's when she was in the outback being a cop, she missed seeing green stuff. So she looked out the window and she said, see that tree out there? And me and all the students looked at that tree and went, it's a tree. She goes, look how green it is. I was like, okay, yeah, it's green. And then she said, look how it's floating back and forward in the breeze. She said, that's just so calming to me. It's so soothing to me. I was just sitting there going, I need to find a better tree. But you could see there were students in the class that were visibly getting pulled into her mindfulness activity. You could see it happen. It was quite incredible.
See, that's very much like me. I will look at the tree and the outline. I will watch how each of the leaves is impacted by the breeze going through it, the sound, because sometimes there's a sound as the wind goes through leaves, which is really, really lovely.
Yep.
Now, some people I think will actually relate to this one. I love the sound of crunching bark under your feet. It's very calming. It's very soothing to me.
Okay, so people living not in Australia will probably not understand this because they'll think you will have meant to say leaves, not bark.
Well, you could actually a good crunchy leaf will also do the trick.
But we don't really have, I mean, it's not as common in Australia as it is in other places. So crunching vegetation.
Can't tell me other countries don't have crunchy bark that's come off the trees.
But like we've got like stringy bark where you get those massive long dried bark that just falls off the tree. No, it's a very uniquely Australian, it's a eucalyptus thing as well.
I'm going to have to put that on a 30-second moment then so other people can see the crunchy bark.
Yeah, I actually think that would be a great idea.
And the sound is I am concerned that it won't come through as much as I want it to, but it sounds amazing.
And see, that's where we come back to this idea that there are a million strategies out there. You've just got to find the one for you.
I found a new one today, which I didn't know.
For you?
For anybody, for anyone, either a carer, someone with mental health issues, Have you heard of the 5-finger breathing?
Explain it. Maybe I have.
So basically, you start at the base of your thumb and you breathe in to the top of your thumb and then out as you go to the next finger. And you just keep going, breathing in and out slowly until you've gotten to the end of your hand.
That's weird.
I don't know that I would touch my hand, but it would actually work for some people.
Okay. Yeah. I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah,
Well,
5-finger breathing. I had to do it in a workshop today.
See, that would just drive me insane. I couldn't do that because, yeah, but.
And also they were breathing quite fast, and I thought some people might pass out from how fast they were going, but I think it's meant to be slower.
But for me, I'm like our youngest daughter. I'm very tactile. It's something that people watching and listening couldn't know, but I like to build things out of Lego. I just sit there. I come up with something in my head. I want to build a building. I just build it.
Yeah, we have Lego everywhere. Everywhere.
So, but it's something for me that it allows me to just switch off from my mental illness, and I'm not thinking about anything except what I'm creating. How does that look?
Yep.
I mean, my son was blown away that I'll build something to a point where he thinks it's good to go. I'll look at it for a day and then I'll break the whole thing down again and start again. But it's something for me, it's just an amazing activity. And a lot of people are going to look at that and just go, that's really dumb. You're an old man. Why are you building Lego? But it's tactile with everything, even in my hands. At the moment, I've got a little like toothpick thing that I'm breaking into pieces. It's just very relaxing for me.
It's good to have something, keep your hands busy if that works for you. That's why there's the tactile strategies for you to have something.
Yeah.
But you need to try the different ones to decide what works for you. So we talked about what I call my moments.
Yeah.
Sounds like I'm having a little breakdown myself. I'm not. It's about being somewhere and you may not be in the best place or in the best mindset, but you can still enjoy a moment that frees you, even if it is just for 10 seconds or 30 seconds, whatever you've got. That moment can just give you the sanity that you need to get to the next day.
Sure. Having cats is a good one for us. Our whole family loves the cat.
Well, they're very furry and they're soft and they're very soft on my face.
But even I didn't realize that just taking out 30 seconds to pat the cat is really beneficial to my mental health.
Yes, they're adorable. But we do everything for them, so you've got to give something back in some way, don't they?
Yeah.
Bunch of freeloaders.
Well, they are very selfish. But I think that's good because at times we don't want pets around us. It's like, go away, pets.
True. And then they're all over you when you don't want them to.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's cats.
Right.
That's cats.
Okay, so let me give you a hypothetical. What would you say to somebody who is living with somebody that's got a mental illness and for some reason they will not use strategies that have been proven to work?
See, that just in itself would be frustrating. And it would be frustrating, and I can say that to you, if you didn't actually actively try to put things in place to help you to cope each day, it would be so frustrating to watch because you'd be going around in a circle every single day, hitting the same problems in the same way, but not actively doing anything to try and combat the sort of mental barrage that you would get.
Yeah.
So then, how would someone cope with that? How would someone keep watching that?
What did you do for me in the beginning to assist me with reminding me to do my strategies and reminding me how important they were? Do you recall? I mean, I know it's a long time. Okay.
No.
For our daughter, let's go with the oldest one, who is a teenager and who's very, very good at being a teenager.
She's an expert.
She's
a professional level teenager.
Doesn't see the importance of strategies.
I think she understands the concept of it, but it's like, it feels like a lot of work. And, at times it is a lot of work.
Yes.
It is a lot of work to put strategies in, because I'm quite sure you think, I just don't want to. Whatever happens, happens. But without trying to put something in, it's just, there's nothing that's going to get better. And then you're not living life.
Yeah. It was funny. We were having a conversation with that kid even just the other day, and I was still surprised how she communicated things, and I knew exactly what she was talking about, but it took you a couple of seconds to kind of, what?
It was at the end of the day as well. I mean, my
Well,
gosh, it's like,
but the point I'm trying to make here is that communication with a person with mental illness can be extremely difficult. Even when you love that person, when you're not going to leave them, because you talk about a marriage, it's like the other person can always walk out. When you've got kids, if you're a halfway decent parent, you're never going to kick your kids out. You're never going to say, you're too much for me, go away. So having that team is good for us, because it really was funny to me. And it wasn't a criticism of you. It was just interesting to me that she said a particular phrase and I knew exactly what she was talking about. And you were like, what does that mean? And I was like, don't you realize what it means? Of course it is what it. And it instantly in that moment, I was like, oh, okay. All right. So that is how deep communication can be and how difficult it can be. It was just interesting to me when we were challenging them about their strategies. We said, what are you going to go do now? And they said, I'm going to go lie on my bed and look at my ceiling. And I was like, is that going to be good for your mental health? And they went, probably not, but it's what I want to do.
Exactly. Whereas today, because a feeling is really just for a moment in time and it will pass. They've woken up this morning, of course, in a better headspace, so able to talk about things more. And we did, and we talked more about strategies this morning and put 2 strategies in place just for today.
Did they work? I know that you've checked in with them.
Yes, perhaps more the tactile strategy.
Okay.
For them.
That's good to know.
Yes, then the words, which was the 5 things you can see, the 4 things you can
smell,
and so on. I think smells maybe further down. It'd be hard to find 4 different things you can smell. You'd be like smelling yourself at the end of that, wouldn't you? So it has to be at the end.
Fear. I could smell cats.
Just
can smell the microphone.
Complicated.
Yeah, smell is really got to probably be the last one.
Yeah, I think the most important thing about strategy is the purpose is for distraction, to stop those negative thoughts and to stop you from staying in that cycle or until it cascades into a massive, massive thing in your head. And then you're starting to talk to yourself about not wanting to exist, not wanting to be there anymore, because it just grows.
Yeah.
And that's what the strategies are meant to combat, to distract you from going to that place and first off.
If you can, and I know that this might be a little bit difficult for you, imagine yourself back when we were first going through this process. I was struggling. I was, with all the behaviors that go around it, I was not engaged. I wasn't, I was just struggling with my mental health. If you could go back and talk to yourself at that stage and just give yourself some advice around strategies, what would that advice have been?
The first one would have been that there's nothing that I can do to make it better. I can't do a singular thing or even a collection of things that's going to make you happy or is going to make you feel better, your mental health being what it is. I can't do anything. But what I can do is just let you know that no matter where you're at, whether you can communicate with me or you can't, I still love and support you. You just need to know that. And that's all you can do. No matter how hopeless you might feel as a result of me saying that, there is nothing you can do. The battle is for the person who's suffering. They're the one who have to do the hard work and have to do all the long road in order to put the strategies in place, take their meds, do their therapy, to try and find a place where they're on an even keel. That's all you can do. Just love and support.
Yeah.
And make sure that you're looking after yourself at all times because, as we've said many, many times, the person suffering isn't the only person suffering. Those around them are suffering as well, particularly as the person with the mental health can often be angry, and not that they're angry with the people around them, they're just angry at themselves. They're angry at the situation. They're angry at the voices that are talking to them in their head. And it just so happens that the people around them are just easy targets or compounding it in some way.
I like the analogy that I came up with for this. You're in the middle of a marathon. Somebody comes up to you and says, right now, you're going to need to do a 100-meter sprint. So you're like 14 miles into a however many miles a marathon is. You're not even at the hard part. And somebody comes up to you and says, okay, now we need you to run 100 meters really, really fast and then continue the race. And you just know that you can't. And you do. You get angry. You get frustrated. It's, oh, you've changed the rules. No, this is not what I was prepared for. And it's not that the person asking you is necessarily asking you to do that. They might be just coming up and saying, look, your child is about to come home from school. Remember to ask them how their day was.
Yes.
And it can be as simple as that, just going, oh, okay, cool. Okay. So you're not attacking me. You're not saying, dude, you're a bad parent. And this is why I'm reminding you. It's like, dude, I know that you're running a mental marathon in your race, but don't forget your kid. Don't forget this. Don't forget that.
Don't forget life. You got to life it.
Well, you often tell me with my oldest, I need to go and react to something and how I need to react. You'll say, okay, she's going to tell you something, just be excited. And I don't know what it is, but I know that whatever she tells me, I've got to be excited. Or don't be upset.
Yes.
Don't get angry. Don't react negatively to this that they're going to tell you.
Sometimes I'll actually tell you what's happened first before they get home. And I'll say to you, I've already dealt with it.
Yeah.
So it means I don't need you to go and be dad and intervene in that way.
Yep.
I just need you to know things.
To be in the ballpark. Yeah. Now, and again, we've got to reiterate that a lot of these strategies were really necessary earlier on. And as I put the strategies in place, as we put the strategies in place, it became easier. And then at times the strategies would happen in such a way that you didn't even realize that you were doing a strategy. So you don't have to work as hard today as what you had to work 3 or 4 years ago to help me through my mental illness.
That's right. But as well as, you used to do a lot of grounding strategies, and which was scrunching your toes, which is another form.
I do love the toe scrunch.
Yeah. But you wouldn't do that as much now as you used to do.
No.
Because the whole point of the grounding strategy was for you to do it. And that's to tell your brain that it's time to relax and you're okay and you're safe and you can switch off a little bit.
Yeah. It's never going to be easy to try and help somebody who will not help themselves. My advice as a person that is a sufferer to somebody that's caring is to make sure that you are safe. Caring for somebody with mental illness does not mean that you're their punching bag. It doesn't mean that you are the person that has to take the brunt of their anger, their frustration. That is not your job. That is the psychiatrist, psychologist's job. That is what their job is to do, to bear the brunt of the overpowering emotion. Your job as a carer, as somebody that's looking after somebody, is to, as Merey said, just let them know, I am not judging you. I am not accusing you. I love you. I support you. Perhaps in this moment in time, it is too much for me. But whatever happens, I'm not going anywhere and I still love you. But always, always, always keep yourself safe. That's got to be the major thing as a carer. And it can be the hardest thing in the world to do. We spoke last week, and I encourage you to listen to last week's Marriage and Mental Illness. You brought up a specific situation where you said, if this continues, I can't go on.
I couldn't stay. Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
And it was a wake-up call, and it was a pivotal moment for us. So keep those lines of communication open, and keep yourself safe. And if you're a sufferer and if you're listening to this going, I've got a mental illness, Mark, and everything that you said is too hard, I'm going to tell you that that's a load of crap. It's not too hard. It is going to be hard. But if you've got people around you that love and support you, you need to get your head around the fact that they do love and support you. And you need to protect people at times from yourself. And that's not being disingenuous. It's not lying. It is just ensuring that you are the person that your family needs to be as much as you possibly can. Hey, we want to thank everybody for listening today. We've gone a little bit longer than we planned to. We hope that you'll check out Marriage and Mental Illness. It is on YouTube. It's on all the audio podcasts as well. We'd love it if you'd tune into that. We'll chat to you next. Thank you for listening to Shattered, the podcast. I'd like to thank our producer, Meredith Brosnan, our executive producer, Torian Lau, and the band Adelaide for allowing us to use their song as our theme. Go to shatteredthepodcast.com for more information.
Thanks, everyone. Subscribe, like, and share.